A lot of news has recently come out of the Carolina Hurricanes organization as there's a new bench boss in Chicago for the AHL team, a potential Jacob Slavin deal in the near future, and get to look at the Locked On AHL mock draft. All of that, plus more, on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. I am the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a jam-packed show for you guys on a Friday edition of the podcast, as Cam Abbott has been named the new head coach of the Chicago Wolves of the AHL affiliate for your Carolina Hurricanes. Also going to talk about potential Jacob Slavin extension, as per from what Elliot Freeman and Jeff Merrick are talking about in 32 Thoughts. And finally, get a look at the Locked On AHL mock draft as the guys from Locked On AHL Prospects give their views on who I picked at 27 for the Hurricanes in our mock draft if I was the Carolina Hurricanes general manager. But before we get into all of that great action and so much more, have you ever dreamed of becoming an AHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Well, now you can with Ultimate Hockey GM. It's completely free, and Locked On listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code LOCKEDONNHL in the game store. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. So, like I said, we're going to talk about Cam Abbott and how he's the new head coach of the Chicago Wolves, as he recently was just named there, and the fact that he's coming over from the Swedish Hockey League of the SHL, where he actually coached at Rogle BK from 2017 to 2023. He was also named the SHL Coach of the Year in 2022 when he led the team to the first ever Champions Hockey League championship trophy of their franchise history. And that's kind of like the CHL is like the hockey version of when you would think of like the UEFA for soccer. Essentially, we have a bunch of teams from a bunch of different countries get together and play for a Champions League Cup. And that's who the Carolina Hurricanes picked to be the new bench boss in Chicago. Him and his brother, twin brother Chris, who's actually the GM of Rogle BK, also played there together as well. So a lot of history with those two guys, being former players, also being good coach and GM there as well, and also did play a lot, and plus with other teams in the SHL, and along with being able to play the with Cam also playing in NCAA at Cornell, and all of that good stuff. So it's good to see that the 4-year-old is getting an opportunity to coach in the AHL, and it's good to see the Carolina Hurricanes figure out who they want as the man to do the job. Now, what's really great about how good Cam Abbott is in terms of how he is as a coach, is the fact that he was at Rogle for the last 6 seasons from 2017 to 2023. And from what I've heard, everyone really likes him. He's a really great coach. He knows how to develop players really well. And if you look at who he's coached over the last few years and who's a notable young star or within Hurricane, not just the I wouldn't even say Hurricanes, just the AHL as a whole in terms of prospects and guys who've come up and did their thing in North America. This is the list of really notable names. There's a lot of good few ones that you might recognize. He has coached at Rogle, Rasmus Sandin of the Washington Capitals, Niles Hoglander of the Vancouver Canucks, Simon Reefers, Adam Enstrom, Mo Seider, and Marco Kasper of the Detroit Red Wings, Kelly Kling, William Wallander, William Strumgren, Adam Erkstrom, Tom Lillander, and Leon Bischel, and so much more. So already off the rip, you're talking about Rasmus Sandin, Niles Hoglander, Mo Seider, and Marco Kasper. That's already 4 guys right now who are playing in the AHL for 3 different respective franchises. So it goes to show how good of a development guy that he is, the fact that that's who he was able to coach over there for so many seasons. So it's good to see that there is that understanding that this is a guy who is able to mentor young players, make them grow, and see them go to North America. And for the most part, do a pretty good job overall. I know different guys in different positions and different skill sets, but having at least 4 guys already in the NHL really goes to show how good a development coach that he is. And I think naming him the next bench boss in Chicago was a great move by the Carolina Hurricanes. And, talking about the hiring process and why they chose Cam, assistant general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Darren York, said, "We're thrilled to welcome Cam to our organization. He brings a long history of excellence in developing NHL stars. Cam's meticulous attention to detail, clear communication, and ability to inspire and motivate his teams to achieve success make him the perfect fit for our organization." And like I said, they're pretty much spot on with how you look at who Cam Abbott is. For the fact that, like I said, he's coached in the SHL for a long time. He was the coach of the year. Rogle BK finished first in the NHL regular season standings and won, the Champions Hockey League for the first time. Even looking back at 2020, 2021, got them to their second place regular season finish and appearance in the SHL finals. And even though, too, he also taught the Vaxo Lakers, which was their under-20 team from 2016 to 2017. He is coming from Sarnia, Ontario, so he's a Canadian boy coming, back to North America, where he did manage to put up 166 points in 276 SHL and Elistering games for Rogle BK and Lula HF from 2008 to 2015 as well. Also played in Norway, scored 65 points in 42 games. And even for the Central Hockey League, he also played for Bossier Shreveport, where he posted 70 points in 55 games. And like I said, going back to Cornell, he scored 62 points in 125 NCAA games, and he also won the EC/AC conference titles in 2002, 2003, and 2004, 2005. So a lot of great accolades, and someone who's done a really good job, even through his playing career. He's, won championships, gone on to coaching, done really well in the SHL after playing in the SHL as well. So he's had a lot of time over in Europe, especially in Sweden. So it's good to see that, he's taken a lot of what he's done over there, and now he's going to bring it back to North America. And like I said, you look at the list that he's already had in terms of players that he's coached, you have a good feeling if you're the Carolina Hurricanes that you found the right guy to do the job. And that's what, assistant general manager Darren York said. And that's because he was leading the coaching, process of who they're going to name. And I think they've probably found the right guy to do. And of course, that's me being a little bit biased as a Rogle BK fan of the SHL who's seen how good this team has been. So it's good to see that, you get to see that success that team has had with their head coaches now coming to Chicago, who can hopefully, mentor, maybe help Ryan Suzuki figure his game out again. You can look at possibly Jackson Blake, Bradley Nadeau, maybe Scott Morrow if he goes down there. But either way you look at it, the prospects of the Hurricanes are in gift for the next at least 3 seasons. They have their guy that they want at the helm, taking charge to develop their players. And even hearing from Cam Abbott, this is what he talked about, how it was the right opportunity for him to leave the SHL and come back to North America and coach in the AHL. Cam said, "It just felt right. I'm exceptionally excited to work under a guy like Rod Brind'amour and to work with the Carolina Hurricanes organization. At the same time, it's exciting to be able to coach an organization like Chicago Wolves, who have a history and a commitment to being a great club, both on the ice with their performance and expectations of excellence, and also with their impact in the community, a massive presence in the Rosemont area. There's been a lot of draws, to be honest with you. It has me smiling every time I see someone from Carolina calling and talking about this opportunity. I'm really thrilled, excited, and honored to have this opportunity." So all around, it looks like it's just everyone's happy, everyone's excited to see what's going on. And I'm, for one, excited to see Cam and what he does for the Chicago Wolves. Like I said, I've already known what he can do as the head coach over there at Rogle BK. Now he's coming over to the Wolves, taking charge of that. The Hurricanes have got the guy who they believe can develop the next crop of stars for the Hurricanes. So overall, it looks like it's a win-win-win for everyone. And I'm really excited to see what the Chicago Wolves do next year because, they missed the playoffs by a wide margin. Their worst season ever, and that's when they were an independent. Now they have affiliation back. Now they got a head coach who really knows how to develop players. So I would not be surprised if we potentially see the Chicago Wolves making a Calder Cup, playoff appearance next season. So very, very excited for Cam. Excited to see what he can do over there in Chicago. Definitely will have to keep an eye on that. And also, we'll have to make sure that we get friend of the podcast, Andrew Rinaldi, on very soon to talk about Cam Abbott and what's to be expected for the Chicago Wolves as we get closer and closer to the 24-25 season. So that's it about Cam Abbott. Talk about him. We're really excited to see what he can do now. We're going to talk about a potential Jacob Slavin extension. That's what I've been hearing from Elliot Friedman of 32 Thoughts. So we'll get to all of that here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hey, Locked On Hurricanes fans, I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an AHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you can run the Hurricanes better than any current GM in the NHL? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, playing through the seasons and lead it to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, and all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Hurricanes fan, you know where there is no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you are going to love the game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and play ball offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDONAHL in the game store, so make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said at the end of segment 1, we're going to talk about a potential contract extension for Jacob Slavin, as on the latest episode of 32 Thoughts with Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick. Elliot Friedman did say that he believes that a deal is done between Jacob Slavin and the Hurricanes. It's just that they can't really announce it yet until July 1, when those extension talks are allowed to be announced. He doesn't know the exact term or what the dollar amount is, but from what he's heard, he believes that Jacob Slavin is going to potentially, on July 1st, sign a contract with the Hurricanes for 8 years at $6.5 million per season, which would be $52 million altogether. And you look at that, you hear the deal, what it potentially could be like, and for as elite as Jacob Slavin is, for the fact that you're looking at a potential deal where you're having him as the best defensive defenseman in the league under $9 million is an absolute steal. And for the fact that you have him under 7 is kind of wild. But you look at the Hurricanes too, is the fact that the Hurricanes are known not as a team to give that type of term to a guy who's already 30 years old. And for the fact that they believe in Jacob Slavin so much, which they should. I mean, it's Jacob Slavin. I don't know how you don't believe in him. You know what you get out of him. You know he's your cornerstone franchise defenseman. You make him a Carolina Hurricane for life, and that's basically it. And I think that's what the Hurricanes did. Like, they understand they want to keep him here forever. And you got to give credit to Jacob Slavin too. He wants to stay in Carolina. He took a huge team-friendly deal, potentially, to stay with the team at $6.5 million for 8 years, which would take him until he's age 38. So he would spend his entire career with the Carolina Hurricanes, because he was drafted by the team, back in 2012 as the 120th overall pick in the 4th round. So he's been here pretty much his entire career, and he's on his last year of his current 7-year, $37.1 million deal, which is a 5.3 AAV. So if you're looking at the fact that he's going to go from 5.3 to potentially 6.5, we're only talking about a $1.2 million bump up for Jacob Slavin. And I think why it's so low in terms of the AAV is because of the term. The fact that you're looking at 8 years. So huge credit to Slavin for wanting to finish his career here, not go and get – I don't think the Hurricanes would never let Jacob Slavin go, and I believe he doesn't want to leave either because he's been here for so long. I think he wants to stay in one place and, be happy with the fact that he's played on one team, and it makes sense to why both sides want to make it work. So that's why there's a potential that this could be official on July 1st. Trust me, it's a huge deal. If you're every other Hurricanes player, you got to be thanking Jacob Slavin right now for a potential team-friendly deal to give the team a lot more flexibility to go get other guys on the roster too. We still got to worry about what's going on with, Seth Jarvis is an RFA. You're talking all your UFAs and Jordan Martinook, Brady Shea, Brett Pesce, Steph Nason. So it really changes things when you look at a guy like Slavin who could really go make that money, and now he's looking at he wants to be here for 8 more years, finish his career in Carolina, and make enough money to where it's good for him and his family, but also gives the team flexibility. That, like I said, just shows the character of who he is the fact that he'd rather stay here and be happy and be able to put the team first like he usually does. So that's really awesome to see. And I'm going to say it right now, Jacob Slavin's number is going to be retired when it's all said and done. You see, Glenn Wesley's number 2, Ron Francis is number 10, and Rod Brind'amour 17 in the rafters. Get ready to see 74 when it's all said and done. I believe Jacob Slavin's number is going to get retired, and you're going to see a banner ceremony, and his number is going to go into the rafters at PNC. You're talking about a generational defensive defenseman who's been with the Hurricanes his entire career. He got drafted in 2012, made his debut in 15-16. Already won 2 Lady Bings, should have won 3 in a row. Already should have, Norris trophies. I don't know any other defensive defenseman who's better than him. That's just how elite he is. And the fact that you're talking about a guy who had 2 penalty minutes in one season, that was a delay game. Back-to-back 8 PIM seasons. 2 shorthanded goals this last year. What more can you say about Jacob Slavin, just how good he is? The fact that how good of a shutdown guy he is. The fact that he can hold Connor McDavid at bay. Sidney Crosby, Leon Draisaitl, all the top players around the league, and he's able to do what he does. As a defensive defenseman, he doesn't put up a lot of points, but his skill set and his defense makes him one of the best. Like I said, it's really hard to win the league being multiple times as a defenseman, and he did, and he joined Red Kelly of the Detroit Red Wings and the Toronto Maple Leafs who did it. So hopefully this is true. Hopefully this is the deal. I mean, even if it goes to $7 million, that's still really good. As long as we know that there's an extension done for Jacob Slavin, because Elliot Friedman said it a few weeks back too, that one of the big things was the Hurricanes was to take care of Brind'amour, take care of Jarvis, and take care of Slavin. If July 1st we hear of a Jacob Slavin deal being done, then there you go. Then it's officially official. Jacob Slavin's a Hurricane for life, and they took care of 2 of their 3 biggest priorities in keeping here in Carolina, and that's just great to see. And it's very exciting if you're a Hurricanes fan. Also, if you're a big Jacob Slavin fan like myself, it's good to see that you have a guy who's going to be here for his entire career, and for the fact that the deal is so team friendly that he's willing to take that. And huge props to the team for kind of, they're not really known as a rental team. They did it for Jake Gensel. It seems like they did it for Shane Gostisbehere. And now you're looking at a team who's, now it's under Eric Tulsky, but they've signed Jalen Chatfield, but now you are also now breaking we're not going to pay a guy at this certain age this amount of money for this amount of term. They did give it to Vincent Trocheck and 1 at 7x7, but you're giving it to Jacob Slavin for 8 by 6.5. Good on them for doing it. Good on them for, kind of changing what they usually do to make sure they take care of their star guys and their franchise cornerstones. So big props to Eric Tulsky, Darren York, and everyone else in the organization for going in, potentially getting this done. I know we're saying a lot of congratulations early, but if this seems like it's going to be what it's going to be, or even, like I said, at 8x7, steal. Congratulations, you just did it. You just locked in one of the best defensive defensemen who's that elite in the league already to that type of contract. You're good to go. So it's awesome to see, and hopefully July 1st we hear that it's official and that Jacob Slavin is a Carolina Hurricane for life. And when it's all said and done, his number will be retired. But, talking about being drafted, in segment 3, we are going to go over the Locked On AHL mock draft, where me and all of the other Locked On podcasters on the AHL side of things did a mock draft of who we think, if we were GMs, who would we pick in our certain slots. And I think you guys are going to like my pick because I've talked about him on the podcast before and also written about him as well. over at the Hockey Writers. And so we're going to listen to what the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast says and what they think overall. So we'll do that here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. ABA Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, ABA Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 2, we're going into the Locked On NHL mock draft where, like I said, me and all the other podcast shows over the Locked On NHL side of things did a mock draft, and if we were the GM of our teams, who would we pick? And for me, I picked Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights. He is a right winger, also plays center as well. And I've really liked his game. And of course, you guys have heard me listen talk about him on the podcast, also write about him as well. But Heidi Kellekesh and Sam High of the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast actually went through all the draft picks, gave their thoughts on, who the host picked in their certain slots. And the clip that we were able to show and be able to, post here on the podcast and all that stuff is their reaction to me picking Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights. So I'm very excited to hear what the guys think and hopefully, see what the reaction is overall when it comes to him being the number 27th overall pick of the mock Locked On NHL mock draft. Without further ado, let's overthrow it to Heidi and Sam High talk about Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights.
At 27th overall here to close off our second segment, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes selecting, and they go for Sam O'Reilly, a center out of the London Knights in the OHL. Played some wing as well, but he projects a lot more of as a center. He's a prospect who I predicted will likely go in the late first round on draft day. So this is exactly where I think he could end up. Carolina's a decent fit. I think there's a couple prospects they might prefer to him, but in terms of the fit here with Carolina, like the defensive game, the composure, the awareness in O'Reilly's game is really what stands out. He's an incredibly intelligent center who plays a physical game, gets into the right spots, makes really good defensive plays. I think he's got everything that NHL teams look for, especially in the kind of contender kind of range, right?
Absolutely. And he definitely has boom potential as a D+1 as well in like the Easton Cowan mold. Similarly to Cowan, he was stuck in a middle six role with London this season, like Cowan was last year. And his offensive opportunities were limited as a result. But with what he was given, he did the very most he could. On top of being a fantastic defensive impact for such a dominant team, he was getting involved offensively. He's a real facilitator in the offensive zone. He creates space for his line mates and makes their lives easier. I could see him really pop off with a 100-plus point season as a D+1 in London. And I know a lot of people in the public scouting community are of the same mind that this is a guy who could really, really like pop off next season. So in that sense, it's a very Carolina type of draft pick in terms of making a bet on the value being a lot higher in a year's time than it was on draft day.
Big thanks to Heidi and Sebastian on their thoughts. And it's good to see that it seemed like it was a good fit for the Carolina Hurricanes in terms of if they go with Sam O'Reilly. So real quick, if you're on the YouTube side of things, I have popped up the actual draft if you didn't get a chance to look at it overall when going over the clip with Heidi and Sebastian. So if you're on the screen, it's above me. If you're on the YouTube side of things, you can see where all the hosts picked their players. Macklin Celebrini going number 1. Ivan Demidov going number 2. And then you look at the Anaheim Ducks and Artem Leshonov and Caden Lindstrom going over as well. So you look and see where everyone's kind of thinking where if they were the general manager of their team, who they'd be going for. Tij Ginla, not a surprise there. kind of where they want to pick him and stuff like that. Sam Dickinson, who is Sam O'Reilly's teammate over in there at number 7 in the draft. So you can kind of see overall where a lot of, like I said, the general, the GMs of our, Locked On AHL mock draft is, and I think overall, I mean, you can see where a lot of, people are kind of looking at in terms of who they think you fit in those certain areas. And for me, it kind of, it just worked out in a way where you see, up there at number 27 on the right-hand side of your screen, Sam O'Reilly. He is listed as a right wing for the London Knights. He does play center as well, but overall, a great 200-foot game. If you look at it in a certain way of like, he definitely fits the Carolina Hurricanes system. I think over time he could really fit into a possible top 6 role, maybe a potential middle 6, but he's a player who could pretty much play in all facets of the ice. Definitely can put him on the power play and stuff like that too. So overall, he's definitely someone who can fit the Rod Brind'amour system for the Carolina Hurricanes. So I have a good feeling that this is one of those things where he could potentially thrive with the team, and I think that's what you're going to see hopefully in the future. If they do take Sam O'Reilly, that he could be that next guy for the Hurricanes in the future. So, but I don't know. It does feel good for the fact you look at of how Heidi and Sebastian both looked at the pick, and the fact that Sebastian's like, yeah, this sounds like a Carolina Hurricanes pick, and let me tell you, it's kind of hard to figure out who you think would be a good fit for your team and stuff like that. Because for me, I'm still getting more into the prospects and draft type of stuff. Because that's not really my forte, but I'm trying to dive more into it too. So if you want to look at potential prospects or drafts that are coming up, I would highly recommend Heidi and Sebastian over at Locked On AHL Prospects. It's a really great podcast. I would definitely highly recommend them and check them out too if you want to get anything in terms of what a future pipeline looks like for all NHL teams involved too. But yeah, kind of, like I said, kind of happy the fact that it looked pretty good and a lot of positive reactions from the guys over there talking about my Sam O'Reilly pick for the Carolina Hurricanes at 27. But if you want to take more of a look at the actual picture itself of the draft, I will post it on social media. So make sure you go check that out if you want to see where the other GMs of our mock draft picked, who they selected at their selections, and you also can take it, like I said, look at who I got at 27 and Sam O'Reilly. But that will wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Like I said, a lot of stuff that we had to go cover. Cam Abbott is the new head coach of the Chicago Wolves, a potential Jacob Slavin extension from what we've heard from Elliot Freeman and Jeff Merrick, and of course, just what we just talked about with the Locked On AHL mock draft and what Heidi and Sebastian both said from Locked On AHL Prospects. If you want to keep up with me in terms of anything related to the Carolina Hurricanes or even anything past that, you can follow me on social media, or mainly X at OneTrueZach. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you click the link tree in my bio, you can find all my articles and newsletters over at the Hockey Writers. You can find all of my AHL stuff over at the Calder Times. You can find links to where to listen and watch my other podcast, Searchcast. And also you can find links to this podcast in terms of where you can listen. And if you leave a 5-star rating and a review, I might just read it on the show because I want to make sure we kind of grow out there and make sure other Hurricanes fans hear it so they become everydayers just like you. On the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss any show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know that you liked it. Also share it with other friends that you know as well who are Carolina Hurricanes fans, because we're exactly at 888 subscribers. So we have the Brent Burns and Martin Nietzsche's numbers of subscribers, and we are slowly on the road to 1,000, because if we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But before, like I said, in the comments, let me know what you think about the Cam Abbott, being picked as the new head coach of the Chicago Wolves. How do you feel about the Jacob Slavin potential contract? And what did you think of my selection at the 27th overall pick for the mock draft? But I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hopefully everyone's a good rest of their Friday and also has a great weekend, as well as we are slowly creeping up to 1 week away from the NHL entry draft, free agency in the month of July. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.